Since ancient times, scientists have found cases of hydrophobia in animals. It's a condition that makes them go crazy at the mere sight of water. If left untreated within 48 hours, it's incurable. Nowadays, hydrophobia is known to be one of the symptoms of rabies. Late one night in Hawaii, veterinarian dog examines a chimpanzee named Ben, who looks quite ill. Dog prepares an injection, but when he turns around, the chimpanzee has disappeared. He hears grunts coming from inside the enclosure and approaches to take a look. When Dog tries to give Ben a teddy bear, the chimpanzee, instead of taking it, grabs his wrist, pulls him inside, and attacks him, slowly tearing the skin off his face. Newspaper articles show Ben as a baby and how he was part of a study that proved how intelligent chimpanzees can be. Ben surprised everyone by learning 300 words in sign language. Unfortunately, the professor who initiated the study died of cancer. It all started 36 hours earlier. College student Lucy is returning home to Hawaii. While boarding the plane, she bumps into Drew and accidentally drops his teddy bear. He apologizes, making funny voices with the bear, but it ends up being just embarrassing. Then, Lucy calls her sister Aren, who isn't very keen on talking. After hanging up, she tells her best friend Kate that Aren is still angry because she's been away from home for years. But Kate advises her not to feel guilty, since her family has been through a lot. Lucy is surprised when Hannah joins them on the plane, and Kate admits she invited her to spend the summer with them. Drew's friend, Brad Hahn, arrives with his luggage as an excuse to flirt and exchange phone numbers. When the girls arrive in Hawaii, Kate's brother, Nick, picks them up. They drive to Lucy's house and find her father, Adam, who is deaf, in the middle of a work video call. He immediately hangs up when he sees Lucy and runs to hug her, welcoming everyone. Adam talks to Nick and asks about his girlfriend, but Nick reveals that they broke up. Knowing that Lucy has a crush on him, Adam thinks this is her chance to make a move, but she ignores him. He then admits that he needs to travel for work, but will be back in a few days. He tries to apologize, but Lucy says they're used to it. Next, she goes to see Aren, who is still upset about her sister's absence. She uses a tablet with a soundboard to say she's busy and ignore her. Lucy uses the same soundboard to apologize, and Aren confesses that she felt very lonely. When Lucy picks up the teddy bear, a hand reaches out to take it from her. It turns out that Ben is the family pet. The teacher who studied him was the girl's mother. So they took him in after her death. Lucy hugs him, and Ben uses the soundboard to say he missed her. Then Lucy introduces Ben to her friends. Han is initially scared, but ends up laughing when Ben squeezes her hand. Later, she can't sleep and wanders around the house. Nick finds her looking at family photos, and she asks about Lucy's mother. He explains that she died of cancer and was a linguistics professor trying to get humans and chimpanzees to communicate. He approaches to flirt and offers her a cigarette to ease her jet lag. But Han continues exploring and finds outside stairs leading to a beautiful pool. At that moment, Ben appears beside her, staring intently at the water while Grown and Baba are almost in a trance. He looks up when Han says his name and gently pats her hand. But suddenly Ben grabs her wrist tightly, and Han screams in pain as he freaks out. When a strange sound starts playing, Ben lets go and moves away. She turns around and discovers that Adam used a whistle to calm the animal. He texts her, explaining that Ben acts strangely around strangers. So, Adam takes Ben to his enclosure and is shocked to find a dead mongoose on the ground. He asks if Ben has been fighting with the neighbors again, but Ben denies it. Upon closer examination, Adam discovers that the mongoose bit Ben, so he decides to keep him locked in a cage for now. The next morning, he shows the mongoose's body to his daughters and tells them about the bite. He says he'll send the body for examination as a precaution and that he called Doug to give him some vaccinations. Then he instructs the girls to keep the chimpanzee locked up and promises they'll have fun together when he gets back from his trip. For the rest of the day, the group enjoys the pool. At night, they take a break to relax, and Lucy notices that Hannah and Nick keep exchanging glances. Jealous, she dares Hannah to call Brad just to expose her. Hannah thinks the idea is great, but dares Lucy to make the call. Since Nick also dares her, she calls the number and leaves a voicemail. The phone rings again and Lucy answers without looking at the screen, making a comment about flirt. Unfortunately, it was Nick's mother calling, trying to contact him because his cell phone was dead. Suddenly, Kate starts vomiting. Lucy takes her to her room and tucks her into bed. Kate thanks her for the care and reminds her of their strong bond, holding the split heart necklaces they both wear. Meanwhile, Hannah tells Nick that Lucy is trying to impress him, but he replies that he only sees her as a sister. When Lucy returns, she finds the two kissing. At the same time, Dog arrives to give Ben his vaccinations, and that's when the attack happens. Sometime later, Kate wakes up and goes to the kitchen to get a drink of water. Hearing a noise, she turns around and finds the teddy bear on the table. She picks it up, thinking the others are playing a prank, but then a dog appears behind her. It stares at her and growls until it lets out a shrill screech. Terrified, Kate runs from the kitchen and closes the door. Ben starts growling at her through the window. Then Kate screams for help. Lucy quickly comes downstairs and Kate says there's something wrong with Ben. They go into the kitchen, but the chimpanzee has disappeared. On the floor, they find the teddy bear covered in blood. Suddenly, they hear screams and run to the pool. Ben is freaking out and Nick tries to keep him away. When Lucy calls Ben's name, he recoils but refuses to answer her questions. Nick knows there's a rope in the pool's equipment box and tries to carefully sneak around Ben to get it, but the animal keeps growling. Lucy distracts him so Nick can reach the box, but while he's looking for the rope, he accidentally drops a toy. The toy starts playing an annoying song and Ben freaks out again. Then Nick throws the toy off the cliff to calm him down. He makes a loop with the rope, ties one end to a post and tries to approach, but Ben loses control again. Lucy talks to him until she manages to hug him, gently placing the noose around him. When the chimpanzee realizes what the rope means, he freaks out and tries to attack Nick, but the rope holds him back, causing him to only manage to knock him down. Aaron arrives and says they need to call Adam or the vet. Then Kate uses her cell phone to call Doug. Han thinks Ben needs to be euthanized, which makes Lucy yell at her. And the two start arguing. Everyone gets distracted and doesn't notice Ben gnawing on the rope. The group falls silent when they hear Doug's cell phone ringing in the chimpanzee's cage, realizing that if he's not answering he must be dead. At that moment, Ben breaks the rope, attacks a wren and bites her leg. Nick grabs him from behind and uses all his strength to push him away. When Han tries to escape, Ben immediately blocks the exit, who remembers that he can't swim, so everyone jumps into the pool. The chimpanzee removes the rope from its body and growls, unable to follow them. The group works together to keep a wren afloat using Nick's shirt as a tourniquet. They begin to suspect that Ben is angry, meaning a wren urgently needs to get to the hospital. However, they are trapped, as Ben is on one side of the pool and there's a cliff on the other. They start shouting for help, but the house is isolated in the forest and no one hears them. Suddenly, Ben jumps and lands on the opposite edge of the pool. Nick swims to him and pushes him off the cliff. However, Ben manages to grab onto the edge, climbs back up, grabs Nick and pulls him down. The boy's head is crushed on the rocks and he dies instantly. Then Ben sits on the edge of the pool and laughs, which infuriates Kate. She wants to attack him, but Hannah holds her back. Ben jumps again, blocking the exit once more, and sits down to wait. Worried about her sister, Lucy decides to get out of the pool to try and get afloat. Ben watches her, but doesn't react. She moves carefully and manages to put the float in the water. Then, she sees a cell phone lying on the ground and tries to pick it up, but at that moment the phone rings and Ben starts to freak out. To protect her friend, Kate gets out of the pool and yells to get his attention. When Ben runs after her, she jumps back into the water. The distraction allows Lucy to grab the phone and also jump into the pool, seconds before Ben reaches her. They try to call emergency services, but the broken screen prevents the use of the keypad. They manage to access the recent calls menu and contact Drew for help. But the boys think they want help throwing a party and take it all as a joke. Suddenly, Ben grabs Hannah by the hair and the girls are shocked to realize he's hanging from the lights above the pool. Hannah struggles to free herself until her scalp is ripped off and she falls back into the pool with a deep bleeding wound. In the chaos, the cell phone falls into the water and stops working. Ben grabs the soundboard and presses the buttons to say, "Nick is dead," repeating the word "dead" several times. Meanwhile, Adam is signing copies of his book at an author event. At that moment, he receives a message informing him that the dead mongoose tested positive for rabies. He finds this very strange, since rabies is eradicated in Hawaii. Then the scientist assures him that they are redoing the test in case of contamination. Adam tries to call Lucy, but she doesn't answer. In the pool, the girls have fallen asleep on the float. The house's landline ringing wakes them up, and they realize Ben is no longer there. Lucy and Kate get out of the water and carefully walk to enter the house. Nick's cell phone is charging, and when Lucy tries to pick it up, she accidentally steps on a remote control. The TV turns on, and they hear Ben going crazy upstairs. Realizing he's coming down, they run to hide in the closet. Ben enters the room and, seeing no one, starts punching and breaking everything. As he approaches the closet, Lucy assures him the door is locked. Ben just sniffs the air before completely destroying it. Startled, the girls accidentally knock some things over. They hide behind the clothes when Ben hears the noise and returns to the closet, starting to break into the wood. He manages to get his head inside and get a good look, but luckily doesn't see them and leaves. After waiting a few seconds, Lucy goes out to get Nick's cell phone. Suddenly, she hears the soundboard saying, "Lucima," and finds Ben hanging from the ceiling. He jumps on her, making her drop her cell phone, and starts beating her. Kate grabs an oar and hits Ben to get him off her friend. Then they run back to the backyard and lock the glass door. Ben punches the glass before trying the doorknob, so Kate holds it from the outside to keep it closed. After touching the door a few more times, Ben backs away and Kate lets go of the doorknob. However, he runs back and crashes through the glass to escape. Lucy runs down the stairs toward the pool, and Kate tries to follow her, but Ben grabs her ankle and knocks her down. Hearing the screams, Lucy goes back to help Kate, but it's too late. Ben kills her, crushing her head with a rock. When Lucy tries to escape, he jumps on her, knocking her down. Hannah runs and grabs the noose, puts it around Ben's neck, and starts pulling. He holds onto the rope to avoid being strangled and turns to roar at Hannah, giving them the perfect opening to jump back into the pool. They pull the rope together to try and make Ben fall into the water, but he grabs the rope and pulls back until he manages to snatch it from their hands. Meanwhile, Adam continues texting Lucy during a meeting. Since she doesn't respond, he decides to go home, ruining his chances of closing a movie deal. Moments later, Brad and Drew break into the house and are disappointed to find there's no party. They start looking around, unaware that Ben is watching them from outside. Then they decide to separate, and Drew arrives at Lucy's room, where he finds her cell phone with all the missed calls. Ben is behind him, but when Drew turns around, the chimpanzee is no longer there. He sits on the bed and looks at a picture of Lucy's mother with Ben, only for the animal to appear growling beside him. Terrified, Drew looks away, but Ben quickly moves to the other side and begins to approach. When Ben claps, Drew claps back, promising he wouldn't hurt him. Desperate, he grabs his keys and waves them to distract the chimpanzee. However, when he throws the keys and says, "Fetch," Ben knocks him down and sits on top of him. Drew tries to stay calm, but Ben holds his arms to immobilize him. Then he loses his temper, starts cursing and threatening him. Ben shoves his fingers into Drew's mouth and pulls until he rips off his jaw. Next, he places the bloody bone on his own face and makes noises to mock Drew's murmurs as he bleeds to death. On the balcony, Brad sees the girls in the pool and starts calling for Drew. They try to tell him to shut up and yell for him to call emergency services, but Brad gets distracted when Drew's jaw falls off beside him. He picks it up, thinking it's a joke, and drops it in shock when he realizes it's real. Suddenly, Ben appears near him and Brad tries to hide behind the furniture. He grabs a shovel and tries to fight. Then the girls hear the commotion and a box falls from the balcony. Taking advantage of the distraction, Han gets out of the pool and goes upstairs, where she sees Ben killing Brad with the shovel. The floor is covered in shards of glass, and she runs painfully over them to get into the house. After grabbing Nick's cell phone and keys, she runs outside and quickly gets into the car. However, when she tries to start the engine, the key won't go in. She mistakenly got into Drew's car instead of Nick's. When Hannah tries to leave, she finds Ben waiting, covered in blood. She quickly returns to the car and locks the door. Finally, she manages to call emergency services for help, but realizes she doesn't know the address. Ben then reveals he has Drew's keys and presses the remote to unlock the doors, forcing Hannah to lock them repeatedly. She cries while begging the operator to trace the call. Ben looks out the window menacingly before going to the back of the car and opening the trunk to get in. Hannah tries to get out of the vehicle, but Ben pulls her back in and beats her to death. Several minutes pass, and Lucy realizes Hannah isn't coming back, so she leaves the pool. After taking a moment to say goodbye to Aren, she goes to the balcony and steps on the broken glass, covering her mouth at the last second to avoid screaming in pain. Unfortunately, Ben finds her and is about to attack her, but is distracted by the sound of Adam's car parking outside. Adam enters the house and bangs on the wall to announce his presence. Ben then starts to follow him, since he can't hear him squealing, but Lucy can. When she enters the room, Ben immediately goes after her and knocks her down. Lucy tries to crawl under the sofa, but Ben pulls her back and starts hitting her. While she screams in pain and panic, Adam grabs a snack from the kitchen and goes upstairs, unable to hear her. Surprisingly, Ben calms down and backs away. He holds Lucy's hand for a moment, only to suddenly break it off. In response, she sticks her thumb into the bite wound on Ben's arm, causing so much pain that she manages to push him off her. She crawls under the sofa, but Ben follows her and tries to scratch her. At that moment, Aren enters the room and tells Ben to stop. Then he jumps on her and starts beating her, leaving horrible scratches on her back. While Lucy runs to pull the chimpanzee off her sister, Adam enters his daughter's room and finds Drew's body. After knocking Lucy down, Ben tries to go after Aren again. Then Lucy throws a bottle at his head. He then attacks her and shoves his fingers into her mouth, starting to pull, but at that exact moment, Adam blows the whistle. Ben stares at the man for a second before running to bite his leg. Then Adam starts punching and kicking him. Furious, Ben knocks him down and starts beating him. Lucy grabs a shovel and hits Ben repeatedly until the tool breaks. Ben uses the opportunity to slap her in the face, knocking her down again. Adam then manages to knock the chimpanzee down and punch it a few times. Unfortunately, Ben overpowers it and slams its head against the ground. When the animal pauses to growl at the girls, Adam grabs a glass bottle, breaks it over Ben's head and then stabs him in the chest. Ben collapses and Adam pushes him aside before hugging his daughters. Suddenly, Ben wakes up and lunges at them. Lucy sees him and pushes the family out of the way, taking the impact herself. As the two fall from the balcony, Adam grabs Lucy's hand and saves her at the last second. Ben continues falling and lands on the broken equipment box below, being impaled and truly dying. This time, Adam and Aren work together to pull Lucy back while the police finally arrive.
Your thoughts in the comments. I read each one personally. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that like button. Let's